was waiting for her. Good morning. I would like to call the Joint Subcommittee on K-12 Higher Ed and CIP to order. Welcome to everybody joining us here in the committee room in Carson City and Las Vegas and online. I am Senator Marilyn Dondero-Loop, chairing the Joint Subcommittee today, and will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assemblymember Hadigi.
Here.
Assemblymember Hafen. Here. Assemblymember Koenig. Here. Assemblymember Monroe Moreno.
Here.
Assemblymember O'Neill. Here. Assemblymember Torres Fawcett. Here. Assemblymember Yeager. Here. Senator Buck.
Here.
Senator Cannizzaro. Senator Scheibel. Senator Stone. Here. Assemblymember Backus.
Present.
Chair Dondero-Loop.
And I am here. And please mark those members present as they arrive. We have several members out either presenting bills or I guess that's what they're doing, presenting bills. So we will see them soon. Before we move on to today's budget hearings, of course, the housekeeping, and please silence your cell phones or electronic devices for those that have them. And if you're going to present today, please make sure you state your name and spell your name for the record. And if you have a business card, please leave it with the secretary. We have a full schedule today, so we'll get right on it. So that everyone is aware, we will follow the order listed on the agenda. First, we'll hear from the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources regarding proposed funding for the various conservation bond programs. Then we'll move to the funding for the various then we'll move to the State Public Works Division and on to the governor's proposed capital improvement program. Let's begin first with the presentation of conservation bond programs, and I will welcome to the table, well, I was all prepared to say Settlemyre, but I guess I'm not saying Settlemyre. So welcome, and please introduce yourselves and begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon. I'm Brandon Bishop, Brandonbishop. I'm the program manager for the Conserve Nevada program in the Nevada Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. Today I'll be presenting the bond programs for DCNR. And go ahead. So DCNR has 4 bond programs. We have our Water Infrastructure Capital Improvement Program, our Lake Tahoe Environmental Improvement Program, the Conserve Nevada Program, and the Commission on Cultural Centers and Historic Preservation Grant Program. All 4 of these programs rely upon general obligation bonds of the state of Nevada, both issuance of exempt and non-exempt general obligation bonds. This biennium, the programs are requesting this funding, so $33.9 million for the Water Infrastructure Capital Improvement Program, $10.5 million for the Lake Tahoe EIP program, and $6 million for the CCHP grant program, and $63.4 million for the Conserve Nevada program. On the left of this table, you can see this is the total authority remaining for each of these bond programs through their legislative authorizations. So the first program that we'll be going over today is the Water Capital Improvement Program. So the Water Cap Grant Program is critical for health and safety of our water systems throughout the state of Nevada. So Nevada has over 600 public water systems. Not all of those are eligible for this funding, but a significant portion of those are. This funding is critical for all sorts of projects across our state that ensure the security and health of our water systems. Historically, this financing has been leveraged with federal partners, with local funding to get water projects planned and constructed throughout the state. Many of our water systems throughout the state don't have the capability of financing water projects on their own. So it really requires a combination of entities coming together to support these. These projects are reviewed by the Board for Financing Water Projects. So it's like a grant program. Each of the water systems applies. It's reviewed and then funded. all in all, we have exceptional need within this category. There is $1 billion in our drinking water infrastructure projects in total need, and another $1 billion in our clean water infrastructure. So this financing is very, very critical for the health and safety of our water systems. This is an overview of potential projects that would be funded for the upcoming biennium. This is only a snapshot. This is not representative of all of the projects out there. Currently, we are going through an application period where water systems are applying for this funding. So that way they are teed off when bonds are issued. So that way projects can be completed within the 3-year period. Typically, we try to phase water system projects. So we'll fund a planning component of the project, the construction component separate, so that way projects are teed up and they're able to complete within the time period. Our next bond program is the Lake Tahoe EIP program. This is really a partnership with our federal, state, and local partners within the Tahoe Basin. This funding supports a wide variety of projects up at Tahoe and is part of our commitment as one of the entities. In total, this program has funded around $2 billion in projects up at Tahoe. This program is really, really successful at leveraging financing. Typically, for every dollar that the state expends, $15 is brought in on a project. All in all, this program is requesting $10.5 million for the upcoming biennium. The next slide here provides an overview of the projects that are currently being proposed for the Tahoe EIP program. This includes some of the planning and construction up at Van Sickle by State Park. This includes the Sand Harbor Master Plan. As always, this is a critical funding component for wildfire mitigation and restoration within the Tahoe Basin, and this includes some of those projects. The next slide also provides, so the Tahoe Environmental Improvement Program also supports water quality and habitat up at the lake. It also supports our Tahoe resource team. So this is some of the other funding potential for the biennium. Our next program is the Commission on Cultural Centers and Historic Preservation. This program supports historic buildings around the state. Many of you have probably been to the Fourth Ward School and structures like that. This funding has been critical to restore buildings and keep our historic treasures continuing to be around for future generations. All in all, this program is authorized through NRS to receive $6 million every biennium. Historically, this has fluctuated between $3 and $6 million, just depending upon the fiscal affordability at that time. All in all, we're requesting $6 million for this coming biennium. There's a lot of need out there for historic buildings, all of which I'm sure you hear about. The next slide provides an overview of potential projects. There is well over the total $6 million in need, as you can see from this slide. The next program that I'd like to give you an overview of is the Conserve Nevada program. This was authorized in the 2019 statutes of Nevada. This was a $217.5 initiative that supports wildfire mitigation, outdoor recreation. It supports open space land acquisitions, conservation easements, wildfire mitigation and restoration, wetlands protection across the state of Nevada. This provides a breakdown in the original authorization. $30 million was allocated to the Nevada Division of State Parks, $30 million for the Department of Wildlife, $30 million for the Division of Museums and History, $30 million for the Las Vegas Springs Preserve. We have $10 million for the Wetlands Park. This financing has been critical since the inception of the bond programs to build out the Wetlands Park. and continues to be an asset for that. It also includes $10 million for the Las Vegas Valley Rim Trail. This is a 100-mile trail around the city of Las Vegas, and then $5 million for historic buildings around the state. All in all, the Conserve Nevada program is looking at significantly increasing the open competitive grants that the program provides. The open competitive grants include the Lake Tahoe Path System, which is the East Shore Trail, as many of you know, the Carson and Truckee River corridors, and then our overall open grant categories, which the original bill authorized $57.5 million. And this funds all of those categories that I previously stated. Typically with Conserve Nevada, there's a 10% match that we require on all of these grants, but many of our partners bring in well over the 10% and are able to finance projects across the state. Overall, the Conserve Nevada program since its inception has led to the creation of over 100 miles of new recreation trail around the state, has conserved over 53,400 acres of property, and has just done amazing projects at all of our state parks and our wildlife management areas, and has touched every county in the state. This is some of the projects that are currently underway with funding this biennium. I won't go through them in detail, but if you have any questions on them, there's some fantastic projects that we're conducting. And this is just a continuation of some of those projects. And then this is some of the big projects that are currently being funded with bond funds and are proposed to be funded with bond funds into the coming biennium. This includes the Valley of Fire Visitor Center, which was funded last biennium with $7 million from the Conserve Nevada program. The Boulder City Railroad Museum, which is currently under construction and was allocated $23.3 million in the last biennium. And then the Springs Preserve, which they are currently in the planning phase of a redo of the Origin Museum to develop a new Colorado River display and to bring the museum kind of up to a modern museum with the development of STEM education and all sorts of amazing displays for the community in Clark County. This is the breakdown of what Conserve Nevada is requesting for the upcoming biennium. $25.4 million for the Springs Preserve, $20 million for the Conserve Nevada Open Competitive Grant area, $2 million for the Lake Tahoe East Shore Trail, $1 million for continued planning on the development of the Vegas Valley Rim Trail, $2 million for the Wetlands Loop Trail at the Clark County Wetlands Park, $5 million for the Nevada Department of Wildlife for a variety of projects across the state. They really do fantastic work matching this money and leveraging it as far as it possibly can go. This is the same thing with parks, which we are also recommending $5 million in funding for. And then it would include $3 million for the Division of Museums and History. And this $3 million is really to continue the commitment to the East Ely Depot. Overall, we work with each of these bond entities to make sure that they are ready to expend funds, and we will phase this across 2 sales within the biennium, appropriate to how projects are ready to spend bond dollars. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that information. And with that, I believe Assemblymember Torres Fawcett, you have some questions?
Thank you, Chair. And I know you gave a brief overview of the bonds within your division, and I'm hoping that you could address some of the overall challenges experienced with the implementation execution of the conservation bonds, and if any of the programs are currently experiencing delays in the ability to expend the proceeds from bonds that were previously issued.
Bond-funded projects are always challenging. The IRS requires us to spend 85% of bond issuance within 3 years of issue. The projects that are the most problematic typically with bond funding are large construction projects. Those are the most likely to have delays. The largest project that we currently have underway is the Boulder City Railroad Museum. This experienced some initial delays with the initial bid having a bid bust. But the project is currently underway and slated to be completed before the deadline for expenditure on those bonds. But we work with all of our bond entities to keep track of who is on schedule and who is not. The bonds provide some flexibility to move money between bond issuances. One of the things with bond funding is it's really important to have stable kind of funding across years. So that way, if a project is falling behind in year one, you can move some of their authority to year two of the sale. So that way you're never hitting the IRS arbitrage penalties. One of the challenges that we always see is trying to avoid that. And currently, bonds have been facing some challenges with the yield curve. So we're kind of in a historic market for bonds. So bond proceeds have actually been coming in higher than they historically have. And so you have to also expend that. You have to expend the full sale plus the proceed interests within the 3-year period.
Thank you for that answer. And I'm hoping that you could also explain what the efforts and procedures are that your division has taken to ensure that the projects are planned and coordinated in a manner to ensure that the bond proceeds are spent down in that timely manner.
Brandon Bishop, for the record. We work with all of our partners to make sure that their projects are being expended. We check into grantees and to projects regularly and pester them a little bit to make sure that they get across that finish line. We also make sure that if they are touching like a federal lands or they're touching some sort of permitting, that is addressed before they get to a place where that's going to cause some sort of delay. Really with our smaller projects, when working with counties, local communities, small nonprofits, we really have to help them negotiate and navigate kind of all of the systems that are out there to make sure that they are successful with those projects.
Thank you. And sorry, one final question, Chair. If the legislature authorizes the total issuance of the bonds for the conservation bond programs as recommended by the governor, what would the timeline be for each of the programs to request the total amount for issuance by the State Board of Finance and to implement projects and expend 100% of the issued bond projects?
Brandon Bishop for the record. So we would optimally split that bond sale. The treasurer does 2 bond sales typically in the fall. After authorization. So we'd be looking at fall of 2025 would be that first sale. We would make sure that projects are teed up to expend those funds within 3 years. We would do that first sale, and then based upon what stage that the projects are at, we would do a second sale in the following fiscal year, right about in fall. And we would coordinate that with LCB, the Governor's Finance Office, and with the Treasurer's Office to make sure that we're in a good path to make sure that the funds are expended in a timely manner and that we don't have any issues.
Thank you very much. I have a quick question about the issuance of the $23 million in bonds for the Lake Tahoe Environmental Improvement Program. Whereas Senate Bill 83 was introduced and authorizes $19 million in general obligation bonds for this purpose, can you confirm that the amount of the general obligation bonds needed over the 2025 biennium to fund the environmental improvement projects in the Lake Tahoe Basin?
Brandon Bishop for the record. Yes, the total amount that we're seeking for the biennium is $10.5 million. We have coordinated with the various entities to make sure that they are ready. If you'd like additional information, we do have Mr. Donahue here who can provide additional detail on the Lake Tahoe EIP program.
That might be helpful. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Charlie Donahue, Donohue. I serve as the administrator for the Division of State Lands. I think I can answer your question. At the initial hearing for SB 83, I proposed an amendment from the 19 million to 10.5. And the reason for that is because during the time period that we submitted our budget proposal and the projects that we had identified for the environmental improvement program. Some federal funding that was supposed to be used for a significant effort of implementing the Van Sickle by State Park didn't come through, and there wasn't, in my mind, a need for an additional authority. And we've always told this body that we have the ability, as Brandon's talked about, linking those years together, that we have the capacity for about 4 to 5 million on an annual basis to implement and put on the ground to ensure that we're meeting the 3-year time period. So we move forward with an amendment to that bill to reduce that from 19 million to 10.5.
Thank you very much. I believe Speaker Yeager has a question.
Thank you so much, Chair. Not a question, I just wanted to make a comment. I was really excited to read through the tables of all these projects. It was a reminder to me of all of our great state parks and what we have going on in those state parks, and particularly excited about what's going on at Van Sickle. I know there's been some potential delays there, but I think that's going to be wonderful. And I wanted to just recognize publicly one of our partners for the Ice Age Fossil State Park down in Clark County and the Valley of Fire. The Helmsley Charitable Trust has stepped in to match $10.5 million on those 2 projects for the state. And so I just wanted to publicly thank them for that, and thank Walter Panzier, who's the trustee, who really does have a heart for conservation in the state. And I'm just so happy that he's made Nevada his home and has seen the value in these sort of projects. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how those get built out, particularly the Valley of Fire State Park, which, is we know, really is in desperate need of a larger visitor center. So not a question, Chair, but just an acknowledgement and a recognition and a thank you to the outside partners who help make these projects happen. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for bringing that up, and I'll add to that because my own dear sweet mother worked on parks from clear in the back in the 50s and 60s and sat on the park board for the state, and so worked hard on the Ice Age Park, and so I appreciate you bringing that up. It's an important piece of our Nevada landscape, so thank you. All right, with that, we will close this part of our hearing. Thank you for being here today, and we will move on to the CIP projects portion of our meeting. So as I mentioned earlier, this will be the last of the 3 hearings related to the governor's recommended capital improvement program from the upcoming biennium. For convenience, recommended projects have been grouped by agency, and today we'll hear from the Administration Department, Motor Vehicles, Public Safety, Conservation and Natural Resources, Wildlife, Military, and Veteran Services. In total, there are 22 projects, and so we'll start by welcoming you to the table. And the plan is to go through the projects for each given department. We'll stop in between for questions, and then we'll move on to the next department so that the members and the staff as well know that. So we'll start with the Department of Administration, I believe, and go ahead when you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, Don Darrow Loop, and committee. For the record, I'm Joy Grimmer, Director for the Department of Administration. Thank you for having us here today for the 3rd presentation on CIPs. With me today is Administrator Will Lewis, Brian Walker, Deputy Administrator for Public Works, and Mike Brown, Chief of Planning. I'll now turn it over to Administrator Lewis to present an overview of today's presentation.
Welcome.
Good morning. For the record, I am Will Lewis, Lewis, Administrator of Public Works Division. Again, as Director Grimer stated, we're pleased to make our 3rd presentation of a high-level overview of the governor's budget request for the State Public Works Division during the 2025-2027 legislative session. As shown on this slide here, these are the projects requested for the presentation. The Department of Administration, Project 25C26, Department of Motor Vehicles, Department of Public Safety, Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, Department of Wildlife, the Office of Military, and the Department of Veterans Services. To begin this presentation, again, I'd like to focus in on the Department of Administration for our first project. Can we go to slide 4? Yeah. So to orient everyone, and this is going to drive me crazy, to the project, here is an overview of the McCarran location in Las Vegas. The red dash line provides a general outline of the state's prior building purchases. The green dash boxes shown proposed purchases of this project. Specifically, this project will purchase and construct improvements for the Department of Administration to occupy facilities at 6830 and 6880 Bermuda, as well as 770 Warm Springs and 7181 and 7271 Amigo. This project will also purchase 3 intermediate care buildings adjacent to the DHHS Charleston campus. These buildings will accommodate the relocation of patients from the existing DHH buildings 11, 12, 13, and 14. Next slide. Thank you. Based on the cost comparison that we conducted, the purchased new buildings are less expensive than updating the existing buildings to current building regulations and codes. The total budget for the project is $78.6 million, and it is 100% state funded. Before continuing, I'd like to just pause real briefly and answer any questions at this point that the committee may have.
I do believe that Chair Monroe Moreno may have some questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Director, for joining the table. My questions are about I'm going to start off, I'll have a few, Madam Chair, if that's okay.
Please, go ahead.
I'm looking at our backup notes, and the appraisals, we're not expected to receive those until May of this year. So can you tell us why the independent appraisal for these 5 office buildings wasn't completed sooner in order to be, that we could be presented with this prior to closing of this budget?
Jack Ruff for the record. Under state law, appraisals have to be done within 6 months of close of that property. So looking at the timing, we have those appraisals started. We will see them in a little over a month. We are confident in the price because we purchased 18 buildings in that same complex with an agreed upon purchase price at $256 per square foot, and the appraisals 2 years ago came in over that $256 mark. So we are confident in the appraisal hitting the mark of the agreed upon price that is still at that $256 price.
Follow up? And I appreciate the fact that you're confident in that. I mean, and I understand that the 6 months in state law, but we also only have 120 days in a legislative session that meets every 2 years. And we're closing budgets now, and we'll be closing this before we actually know. I mean, you're confident, but the appraisal may come in at a different amount, which makes it kind of challenging for us as a legislative body to make sure that the appropriate amounts are put into the budget. So, yeah, you had 6 months, but couldn't it have been done just a little earlier so we had that maybe in April?
Jack Ruff for the record. We are confident in $256, like I said, and that's an agreed upon price with Thomas and Mack. Where that would become an issue if the appraisals come in under value of $256. If they come in over value of $256, we are still good. The only time that there would be an issue is if they come in under $256, and at that point we would have a negotiation with Thomas and Mack to buy at appraised value, because we were only able to buy at appraised value. And if it did come under, I believe it would be such a slim margin that negotiation would be easily had.
Sorry, Madam Chair. So you would negotiate with Thomas and Mack because we wouldn't have time to have that reflected in the governor's budget, correct? Whether it came in, if the appraisal comes in higher or lower, we won't have the time to make that reflection in the governor's budget? Or is there an opportunity to make a change prior to us actually closing on this?
Jack Grubb, for the record, yes, without a doubt, there will be time to make that change.
And in making that change, we're past amendment, so would that be a conversation with our fiscal staff of what that is? And as soon as you get that, would you let us know so we'll know how to move forward in closing documents?
Jack Grubb, for the record, the date that that becomes available to us, we will relay that promptly over to LCB fiscal staff and to the two chairs of the finance committees.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When did the division begin utilizing funding from approved statewide advanced planning for the CIP projects to fund the cost of appraisals? And how was the use of this funding determined to be an authorized use of those funds? Because there appears to be a change in funding method.
Jack Grubb, for the record, I'm trying to figure out your question because the appraisals that are coming forward for the 5 buildings in Southern Nevada through Thomas and Mack, those appraisals are being paid for through Thomas and Mack and part of our negotiated purchase of the complex. We did not pay for the appraisal last time. We are not paying for the appraisal this time.
Okay, so my question is coming through this. In my notes, the appraisals were either funded through the Project 23, PO4 statewide advanced planning. Was that an acceptable use of those funds to pay for this appraisal?
Jack Grubb, for the record, as I stated a minute ago, the appraisals for Thomas and Mack are going to be held by Thomas and Mack and paid for 100% by Thomas and Mack.
I just want you to get that on the record one more time, that they were paying it and we weren't.
Yes.
I appreciate that. And then I just have one other question, and it's kind of long, and I apologize. The independent appraisals for those 5 office buildings were funded through that, currently being paid by the building owner. If the Thomas and Mack's funding of the appraisals, how is the division going to ensure that the appraisal, since the owner is paying for the appraisal, how are we ensuring that the appraisals are truly an independent appraisal?
Jack Grubb, for the record, we have worked with the owner to select an appraiser that we are both very confident in, and by ethics and laws that govern appraisers, they have a duty and they have licensure that ensures they follow certain methodology to ensure accuracy for both a buying and selling party. So even though they're being paid by one, they have a duty by law, and their license is reliant upon their ability to be fair and accurate for both parties.
Thank you. So just confirming that I heard you correctly, both your division and the owners, Thomas and Mack, came to the conclusion and decided on who that appraiser would be. It wasn't just the owners.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. That was one of my questions, is how do we know that the appraisal, if it's paid for by the owner, is accurate? So I appreciate that question, Chair. All right, we will go to Assemblymember Hadigi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Madam Chair, I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. Thank you. And first, I want to start with the agency move-in requirements. It's my understanding that you guys got to the 3.3 million cost, not from detailed information, but rather just using an average of $16 per square foot based on previous projects on what that move-in cost was going to be. How much does the department anticipate spending on moving costs for agencies? Of that 3.3 million, how much is actually going to be spent on moving cost?
Jack Grubb, for the record, I believe that that is a very good estimate and one that we are comfortable with. In the past 18 months, we've moved into 30-plus buildings, moved over 4,500 employees. We have a very polished system between movers, data, IT, furniture, everything associated with moving employees. When you move 4,500-plus employees, we are efficient at it, and we have a good crew that helps us get to that end. So we anticipate using all of it, yes.
Okay, perfect. And that's going to cover, again, like you said,
Yes.
the moving costs, the furniture.
Yes.
Okay. And then I do have another question. When does the department anticipate agencies will be identified to occupy these spaces? It's my understanding that I know the DPS is at 6830 Bermuda, but then it looks like the Future Forensic Lab and the Cannabis Compliance Board are going to be moving into 6880, but I mean, are we putting the cart before the horse? We don't even have state agencies identified for these buildings, and yet we're spending quite a bit of money to buy buildings that we don't even know who's going to live in there.
Jack Ruff, for the record, I really do appreciate that question. I want to go back to last time. When we started this, we had over 1 million square foot leased in Las Vegas. We bought 835,000 square feet. 198 of that went to the ledge, 225 replaced the shutdown of Grant Sawyer. We had to move all those individuals out. Then we closed down Belrose. Our net gain out of the 835 to move staff into last time was 356,000 square feet out of the total million plus that we leased in Southern Nevada. This time we're looking to purchase 205,000 square feet. As you stated a minute ago, 64,000 of those are currently occupied by DPS. So we have a net gain of 141,000 square feet. Currently, in the next 2 years, leases coming due, we have 49 leases coming due for a total of 374,866 square feet. 1,868 employees occupy those current lease spaces. We have not done a full assessment of all those lease spaces. And some of those lease spaces out of the 374 are neighborhood-specific, a welfare office or something like that, that needs to stay in their location. But I can assure you, we in the 141,000 square feet net gain that we would have, looking at 374,000 square feet of office coming due on leases in the next 2 years, we have more than enough staff to adequately fill each one of those up. But we want to do a full assessment of a current condition of their lease space, move people out of the worst neighborhoods, the worst facilities, and take care of our employees and get them into a place they can be efficient and effective. And also, what we have found in our prior moves is you had an agency operating in 4 different spots in town, over 6 different buildings, and we were able to co-locate those agencies by looking at the square footage we had available, square footage they needed, and do the right thing for agencies and shift some people around to become efficient and effective and serve our customers in a more efficient, effective manner that saves money for the state.
Can I have just one follow-up? When do you anticipate that assessment being done? Like you said, you have 49 leases coming due in the next couple of years. So if this budget is approved and these buildings are purchased, when will the assessment be done, and when will you identify who's going to go into these buildings?
Jack Ruff, for the record, we purchased those buildings almost 2 years ago now, and we are still assessing just in the past few weeks. We thought we were going to maintain one lease going forward. The lease payment on that came in at a price point that we could not have with our current budgets. So we are shifting and doing some things on campus to accommodate a different agency than we had originally anticipated. So a lot of this is planned out, but we have to be flexible and nimble to meet current market conditions and things that change within the buildings that we currently occupy in those lease spaces. So we do have a lot of ideas, and for one instance, welfare, they're right. If you're touching down on Southwest, about 10 seconds before you land, you pass over welfare's headquarter building. That's where Robert Thomas sits. that lease is coming due. Without a doubt, he's going to move on to the campus. There's things like that that have been identified, but if you look at building 15, which is 770 Warm Springs, some of it is vacant, some of it's leased. We have to let some of those current leases burn off, but that building is split up into smaller offices. It's more broke up, condominiumized, and those are perfect type locations to put some of our smaller agencies, boards and commissions, and other staff that requires 2 to 3 offices and maybe 4 or 5 people in an open setting. So we're working through that now. We have identified a lot of it, but even though we had some stuff identified last time, it is an ongoing process to make sure we take care of everybody in the best possible manner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to.
Thank you very much, and we'll go to Assemblymember Backus.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I hope you don't mind. I kind of sent her a note. I had some more questions than what I was planning to ask, because you raised something really interesting on moving as leases are coming up. Some of the information I was reading is the Department of Public Safety had moved to one of these buildings that is being proposed to purchase, and that they're paying some lease in that building. I believe it's the one that sits across from the governor's building across the freeway. And so my question along those lines is, one, why was it that that was acquired as a lease earlier than their lease had expired? And second question would be, how are we going to pay the amounts due on the outstanding lease for their prior location?
Jack Robb for the record. That was not just one lease that DPS had coming due. There was multiple things on the table there. And the main driver behind that was Department of Transportation was looking at building a $72 to $78 million office building on the Washington Courtyard area just west of Grant Sawyer. And they were in the middle of planning on that project for $72 million. One of the things that we looked at in their wanting to build that was they own the Fast Center. And the Fast Center was primarily occupied by DPS. So if we moved staff out of the Fast Center and freed up that vacant space for NDOT to move into the space that DPS vacated, that saved us a $72 to $78 million build on Washington Street. And so that was step one. Step two is they had other leases coming due. We moved people out of the Fast Center to 68 or Bermuda, whatever, I think it's 6830 Bermuda. Those people moved out of the Fast Center, moved over there. They had other leases coming due. The one lease that is problematic is the one where we have Post, and that is in a building that is less than desirable. And we have an agency paying lease in 2 spaces there. That is a $600,000 issue. But we avoided a $72 million issue, and we avoided other rent payments and other things by moving into this building. And we co-located DPS, and we can have something that functions. That building was built for FBI and Metro. It's a hardened police building with high walls, secure gates. It's meant to be a law enforcement building, so it was ideal location. So we have to figure our way through that $600,000 shortfall, but we saved millions. We made a business decision to try to figure out how to get through that $600,000 shortfall. We have looked at using the return to work money. It is for leases, and it would be to avoid lease payment and get out of that lease in an undesirable area and get all DPS under one roof. So that is what we have planned at this point, and that's the direction we've been headed.
Thank you for that. And you mentioned something else that I was kind of curious about, and also was the Grant Sawyer. What's the status? I believe the state is planning to sell the property for the Grant Sawyer. Can you kind of give us a status on where that's at?
Jack Robb for the record. We went out to auction twice on Grant Sawyer, and we were unsuccessful in getting a bidder. at the appraised value of $19.45 million. When we did the appraisal on that, we paid for that appraisal. I walked through with the appraiser and I pointed out all the deficiencies I knew of and had others walk through. We wanted to make sure that that building was accurately appraised. So we need to sell that building. And 19.45 is what it came in at. I think it was $89 a square foot. We did not get a bidder twice at 19.45, and under state law, after you're unsuccessful in getting a bidder twice, you can, not you, Mr. Donahue can go out and get a broker. And there's a broker that we're very familiar with. He was actually somewhat associated with a few of the deals we've done in the past, representing sellers. So we were comfortable with the broker. We went out and selected that broker, and he has put that on the market. And we have talked to Major League Soccer. They were very interested, but did not have the funds to come to the table to buy it. We have talked to a Children's Hospital. They also looked at Cashman, and we've been in talks with them. And we have been working with Lennar, and they were the successful bidder at Cashman. And Lennar, as late as yesterday, we saw an offer from them that is $10,638,000 with a close sometime in September. They need to go through an entitlement process with the city, and we assured them that we would work with the city on that entitlement, and that's who bought Cashman. And we've been in talks with leadership at the city to make sure that that entitlement process goes forward. So we're committed to working with Lennar and trying to get to a purchase and sale agreement that is signed. We're looking at approximately 4 weeks to get a signed PSA. Once we get a signed PSA, they have 45 days to go hard with $1 million non-refundable money prior to the September timeframe close.
Thank you for that. And then, Madam Chair, my next questions actually have to pertain to slide 5 at the bottom, just the 3 buildings that was, I think it's an amendment to add an additional $7.5 million to acquire or somehow get the 3 buildings, to address the 3 buildings that are going to be replaced. I know we're doing a lot of work at the West Charleston campus. And so regarding this amendment to add $7.5 million in general fund appropriations to purchase 3 new buildings, can you explain the anticipated or finalized agreement in regard to who is going to be responsible for the cost of constructing the new buildings and how a purchase price of $7.5 was determined? And that would be helpful.
Jack Robb for the record. Since the December IFC down in Las Vegas, when the $3.8 million became an issue, because we were supposed to rehab Building 9 with that $3.8 million, and we had a couple-hour discussion on that. That's been a major portion of my task, trying to figure out how to house young individuals on the autism spectrum or with other developmental delays. I can tell you out of everything you have in front of you in the CIP and all the CIP you have, the one that is probably needed the most is this $7.5 million. We are very short the number of beds that we need to provide adequate care for these individuals. I know we have IFC tomorrow, and we're going to go into this deeper when I have people from DHHS sitting next to me. But the 7.5, we worked with private developers trying to figure out how to get some adequate space built for these young individuals. We tried multiple options, trying to buy land, trying to do other things, working with developers. And with 4 or 5 unsuccessful attempts to get to a point that we had land that we could do this on in the time frame that we had to get it completed. We looked back at property we have on the campus, and right across from Opportunity Village at Oakey and I think it's College Drive, there there's a vacant piece of property that we will, when we deed over the other property to Campus for Hope, we have selected that site to be deeded over. Some of the first structures and first activity to be accomplished on the campus will be to get those facilities built, to relocate young individuals and provide better buildings than they are currently in, and upgrade our ability to give these young individuals care. But that's how we came up with the 7.5, and it will be in conjunction with Campus for Hope, their developers, and their construction crews to accomplish building of as many beds as we can afford with $7.5 million. And not to exceed any building with over 12 beds, because there's maximum to keep within licensing.
Thank you so much for that. You answered one of my other anticipated questions, and then this may be something we'll talk more about at IFC. But with respect to the construction of these buildings, do you have any idea as a time frame? And then the part that maybe you talked about at IFC is I'm not sure if that's something that's going to be built first, have the children move there before the Campus of Hope is built, or if we're going to have some sort of transitional period, and that may be what you were thinking about. We may be diving in at IFC, but just kind of curious on that.
Jack Robb for the record. Timing. The 7.5 was identified as state money, not bonded money. That 7.5 is not available year one of the biennium. It's only available year two. And because the way that funding is put in there, my understanding is it will sunset June 30, 2027. So we will have these buildings built and ready for occupancy by June 30, 2027.
Okay. So one thing, and I'm not 100% of this, I'm just trying to getting help from staff, but I understand the money may be actually available 4 years. So you may have like a little more time on this, unless it's, unless you're looking at it, because you said to me that the money was only going to be available in the second year of the biennium, so that would be fiscal year 2027. Are you thinking like an appropriation side of the 7.5 against the general fund? Is that what you're kind of saying?
Jack Robb for the record. Even if the money was available longer, it is a priority of the states and a priority of Campus for Hope to get these young individuals taken care of, and we've come up with, we want those buildings completed by June 30th, 2027.
And Madam Chair, one last question that I thought about. Back to the DPS, with the money that was going to be utilized through the return to work funds, if that money's not there, do we have a contingency plan to cover that $600,000?
Jack Robb for the record. At this point, we would have to look other places, but we have not identified a fallback at this point.
Thank you, Madam Chair, too, for the courtesy.
Any additional questions from the committee on this particular item? All right. As we go through this, we may think of other things, but for now, I think we're done with this department, and we will move on to the Department of Motor Vehicles.
For the record, Will Lewis, Administrator Public Works. Next, we would like to present 2 capital construction projects for the Department of Motor Vehicles. First, Project C-17 is a renovation for the DMV. As indicated by the red box, the site is located at 555 Wright Way in Carson City. This project will renovate the Central Services and Records Division. It will also include the repair of the floor raceway on the second level. The total budget for the project is $4.8 million, and it is 100% highway funded. Next project is C-18. It's another renovation for the DMV. And as indicated by the red box, this project is located in Southern Nevada, the Southern Nevada DMV. That's 7170 Decatur Boulevard in Las Vegas. This project will replace the existing countertops and caseworks. Although the agency has been trying to tape and conceal much of the damage, these countertops pose a safety hazard for our customers and our employees. The total budget for the project is $1.8 million, and it also is 100% highway funded. Next, we'd like to present 2 maintenance projects for the Department of Motor Vehicles. This slide shows a total list of the DMV projects. Note both projects are funded 100% by highway funds. The total budget of $2.3 million is being requested for these maintenance projects. Next, Project M20 is an upgrade to the interior lighting for the DMV. As indicated by the red box, this again is another Southern Nevada DMV project located at 8250 Flamingo Road in Las Vegas. This project will replace the interior lighting with upgraded LED lights. The project will also include replacing the lighting control system in the building. The total budget for this project is $745,000 and is 100% highway funded. Next is Project M24. This is the replacement of the surveillance cameras for the DMV. As indicated by the red box, another Southern Nevada DMV project located at 2621 East Sahara Avenue in Las Vegas. This project will replace the surveillance cameras with an upgraded Internet Protocol or IP system. The project will allow for both local and remote security viewing of the facility. The total budget for the project is $1.6 million, and it is 100% highway funded. At this point, I'd like to just take a minute to pause and answer any question the committee may have.
Thank you very much, and I believe Senator Scheibel may have some questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do. Going back to the first project, I think C17. Can you just clarify for me? I'm sorry. Those are buildings that we already own, or can you just kind of give me an overview of that project?
Good morning, Brian Walker for the record. Yes, those are buildings that we own. This is the Carson City DMV, just about a mile or so south here in Carson City. We do own this building. This is improvements on that building. And I guess with regards to, just what's in the project, it's basically a tenant improvement for Central Services and Records Division within DMV or CSD to basically update the workspace for their staff, provide some additional desks that they do not have. They're overcrowded right now, so that just provides a facility that they will need. But it is an existing state building.
Okay, thank you. And so then how many staff will be accommodated in the renovated building?
Brian Walker for the record. We're looking at approximately 108 full-time employees in that building, which is what they currently have. Staff there is my understanding. Right now, it only accommodates about 100 employees.
And with the renovations, it will accommodate 108?
Brian Walker for the record, correct.
Will it have some flexibility if that ever increases to 110? Or will we be back here in the same place if we hire 2 more people?
Brian Walker for the record, that's a great question. I'm just going off my notes of what that would accommodate in there. With anything that we do, and especially of a space of that size, there would be room for some future flexibility and accommodation. I think we're not going to be back here next session saying we have 110 employees in that space.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, what is the plan for temporary displacement of employees during the renovations?
Brian Walker for the record. Our plan on this project is to provide a temporary workspace for employees, in conjunction with some, I guess you'd call it kind of phase construction of that facility. We have some dollars within the project to accommodate that. We have understanding we're not going to send the staff home or not do the work. So we will provide temporary space for these folks.
And do you have if I may have a follow-up? Yes. Do you have an estimate how long they'll be in those temporary spaces?
Brian Walker for the record. The anticipated time, we're looking at about a 7-month construction window for this. So we would have, staff, so about 7 months, and I think it would be a rolling time for different staff based on just the phasing and the construction need.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have one quick question can you talk a little bit about the need for the new inspector station and where that existing fleet registration would be relocated? Always good to have a phone a friend.
Good morning, committee members. For the record, Angela Smith, Chair. To your question, right now, the Carson City VIN Inspector Station houses 1 employee, which makes it very challenging for that 1 employee when they need to use the restroom or go on lunch to have coverage. So we'd like to be able to expand that space so that we could easily accommodate 2 folks.
Okay, thank you. And so where will that registration station be located?
For the record, Angela Smith, Deputy Director, DMV. We would house them probably temporarily in our front service counter while any renovations are going on, and then work with them on the outside, like on the side street that nears the office.
So you have space to relocate that person. That's what I guess I was asking. Thank you. All right. With that, we'll close the hearing on this particular subject, and we'll go on to the Department of Public Safety.
Administrator Will Lewis for the record. My final project to present is the one and only capital construction project for the Department of Public Safety. It's Project C20. It is the evidence impound lot expansion for DPS, and as indicated by the red box on the slide, the project is located in northern Nevada at 2101 Snyder Avenue here in Carson City. This project will design and construct a 15,600 square feet expansion to the existing evidence impound lot, which includes fencing, lighting, and security cameras. The project will also feature a commercial carport and work shed for DPS personnel to perform their investigative activities. The total budget for the project is $1.1 million, and it is 100% highway funded. And again, with that, we'll take a pause and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. And I believe Assemblymember Torres Fawcett may have some questions.
Thank you, and thank you for the very brief overview of this item. How many additional vehicles would be accommodated with the expansion of the evidence impound lot? And what are the issues that the department has experienced with security and maintaining the integrity of the evidence located in the current lot?
Brian Walker for the record. Thank you for that question. I think I'm trying to see if I can answer that correctly. We're looking at I'm not sure if I have that with me. Current lot has 106 vehicles in that right now. I do not have with me what it will hold when we're done. I could follow up with that information. I'd be happy to. I know some of the issues they have with the lot right now is basically they have, these vehicles that have to be there, for several months as it's going through the process that DPS goes through with impounded vehicles. And they basically spills over into the parking lot they have that is not secured. And so a big part of this project is to have space behind, secured space behind a fence to hold these vehicles. So one of the issues is they just have vehicles that are not properly secured.
There may be a phone a friend sitting behind him that has a more detailed answer.
Good morning. Lori Renfro for the record. Lori Renfroe. I am the DPS evidence manager, and hopefully I can answer that question a little bit better. For the first part, I don't know how many more cars we will be able to get into the new space. Right now, I do have 106 vehicles in my impound lot, as well as a temporary impound lot that I had to put in place in 2023 because I ran out of room in my current lot. According to Google, when I Googled it, I can technically get in about 41 to 54 cars in my current lot, not counting my temporary lot. I have about 70 crammed into my lot at the moment and another 40 in my temporary lot. The temporary lot is not secure. It is a chain link fence with privacy screening and padlocks on the gate. My current impound lot I want to expand does have the barbed wire fence across the top, and it's a little bit more secure. However, we don't have cameras out there. I have no way of saying if anyone's been in my lot or not unless I do have security cameras out there, because it's not someplace where I'm on site 24/7. So security and expansion are very, very important to me. My current average time for vehicles in the lot is about 800 days. I have to wait for case adjudication, evidence releases, the appeal process. And then once all that is done, it takes me anywhere from 30 to 60 days to release the car, contacting the owners, getting the vehicle out of the impound lot. So it's not a quick process. Thank you.
I have a quick follow-up for that. What percentage or how many of those cars never get claimed?
Lori Renfro for the record. Thank you for the question. I do have, it's not that they never get claimed. We do have a small percentage that end up being abandoned. I do work with DMV and get junk certificates on those and remove those to a wrecker. However, I do have vehicles in there from the 1990s. I have a vehicle that I cannot release until he's either released from prison or passes away. It's a 1998 murder case. So I do have some cars that are in there for a very long time.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, any additional questions on this particular item? All right, thank you. With that, we will close this particular budget, and we will go on to conservation and natural resources.
For the record, Administrator Will Lewis, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Mike Brown to handle that portion of the presentation. Mike, please.
Thank you, Will. Good morning. For the record, Mike Brown, BROWN, Chief of Planning. I will now present the maintenance project associated with the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, or CNR. Project M10 is located at the South Fork Dam, approximately 16 miles south of Elko. This $1.9 million project will design and construct the replacement of the primary outlet sluice gate and the emergency spillway gate. Currently, the primary outlet gates have worn down, creating vibrations when operated. Also, the emergency spillway gate can only be operated approximately halfway through its designed range. And now we're ready to answer any questions you have about CNR's maintenance CIP project.
Thank you very much, and I believe Chairman Moreno has some questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my questions are just a question on the South Fork Dam. Looking at the highlights, kind of concerned with the condition of the dam. It was built in 1986. What would be the consequences if that dam has failures, and what measures are being taken to ensure that it won't occur?
Good morning. Keith Conrad, Division of Water Resources, KEITHCONRAD. In response to your question, there's any probable number of failure modes at the structure. We did a screening level risk analysis recently to identify these and the potential loss of life if any of these were to happen. And it was kind of encouraging to find out that there's, with most failure modes, the potential loss of life is relatively small, and that would be mostly directly downstream at the ranch, at the mouth of the canyon, and then below that, it would be in the Carlin area. And but the arrival time for any flood waves from, say, a breach or a failure or an overtopping would be about 45 minutes to an hour notice for the folks in Carlin. So there's some comfort in that, but something, we hope would never happen.
Thank you. Some comfort in that, but what measures are we taking? Looking at our backup notes, some of the, missing hardware and some other things are really concerning. What measures are you taking to ensure that it doesn't happen until we can make these repairs?
Keith Conrad, for the record. Well, we actively manage the reservoir. We have people on site daily. We are monitoring water levels in the reservoir, as well as coming into the flow rates coming into the reservoir. So, and also in anticipation of storms, we can release water to allow any flood inflow to come into the reservoir. And then on top of that, we've got a fairly robust monitoring system within the dam itself. We have relief wells, piezometers, et cetera, and we monitor flow rates from the relief wells. We monitor the piezometers to see if the water level within the dam is rising, the phreatic surface. So it's pretty actively monitored and controlled.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and I have just one quick follow-up on that. I know that they're talking about starting the construction in May of 2027, and it would be completed in October. Would that give them enough time to do that? That's pretty short. And I get that they need to have it done before winter maybe, but is that a long enough time for them?
Well, it's two separate projects, so it depends on which project and what time of the year. I would imagine how it's done. Ideally, you would want to do the auxiliary spillway gate repair or replacement, and during the winter time when there's less flows coming into the reservoir, and probably the same with the low-level outlet sluice gate replacement. Both of those will require, and it may not be possible to do during the winter due to icing over, but it would ideally be done when there's less inflows into the reservoir. And both projects will require, barges, divers, et cetera, to perform the tasks.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, any additional questions on this budget? All right, seeing none, we'll transfer over to the State Department of Wildlife.
Again, for the record, Mike Brown, Chief of Planning. I will now present two planning projects for the Department of Wildlife. Project P04 is a planning project to rehabilitate the Eagle Valley Dam located in Spring Valley State Park, 18.5 miles northeast of Pioche on Nevada State Route 322. The dam was constructed in 1965 and is classified as a high hazard dam. This $2.8 million project will provide design through construction documents to rehabilitate the dam's various components, including the lower outlet, slide gate valve, and the concrete and riprap or loose stone spillway. It also plans for the installation of an additional concrete spillway, monitoring wells, seepage drains, and a buttressing embankment. This rehabilitation is necessary to remedy the overall poor condition of the dam. Next, we have Planning Project P07. This project is located at the Mason Valley Wildlife Management Area, or WMA, in Urington as shown on this map. This $948,000 project will conduct a drainage study and provide design through construction documents for drainage and roadway improvements on Lux Lane, which is the main access road running through the Mason Valley WMA. During flooding conditions, Lux Lane becomes impassable. Next, I will present the maintenance projects for NDOW included in the 2025 Governor's recommended CIP. There are 3 maintenance projects totaling $4.1 million. Project M11 replaces the Lux Lane Bridge and reconstructs the main roadway entrance into the Mason Valley Wildlife Management Area. This $3.3 million project includes comprehensive bridge work, guardrail installation, channel grading and armoring, paving, signage, and culvert replacement. This project includes $250,000 in agency funds and $250,000 in Fed funds. Project M19 is located at the Wildlife Office in Elko, off Interstate 80. This project site includes Nevada Division of Forestry, Nevada Youth Training Center, and NDOW. This $534,000 project will design and construct drainage improvements to the channel that runs behind the Elko Wildlife Office. Runoff from heavy snowfall in 2023 eroded soils adjacent to the facility, which threatened to undercut the building and erode the secure storage yard. The final CIP maintenance project for NDOW is M23, located in the Key Pittman Wildlife Management Area, near the intersection of State Routes 375 and 318 and US 93. The Key Pittman WMA is approximately 40 miles west of Caliente. This $294,000 project will design and construct a French drain around the perimeter of the supervisor's residence and construct a dry well and sump pit. During heavy rains, the basement experiences seepage, water accumulation, and ponding. At this time, we're ready to answer any questions you have about NDOW's CIP projects presented to you today.
Thank you very much for that information. And Assemblymember Hadagi has some questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have some similar questions to my colleagues about the dams. I know that Eagle Valley Dam is a high hazard dam as well. It looks like it was constructed in 1965 and it's never been rehabilitated. And I know there had been a recent dam safety report in 2024 that said that the condition of the dam is poor. And so can you talk to us, like, given the report and the issues and the age, why it hasn't ever been rehabilitated, and what you're planning to do to manage and mitigate the identified safety hazards and risk at the dam?
Keith Conrad, Division of Water Resources for the record. To answer your question, I probably wrote that report. There's any number of issues at that structure, but I don't think that if you were to look at any of the portfolio of the state-owned dams throughout the state, a lot of them aren't in great shape. So the idea that these are getting in front of you guys for funding is important. We've done projects at South Fork, the Echo project, et cetera, Cave Lake. All of these are being addressed, and so I would imagine that this is just what's in front of you now. Next session, it'll be another set of dams, hopefully. So, but insofar as the Eagle Valley Reservoir, there are a handful of issues that I can think of off the top of my head. Namely, the low-level outlet is submerged on the outlet. We cannot see the outlet, and I'm not sure if it even functions. And so there's a potential that there's erosion through or next to the outlet structure as it goes through the dam. I've been up there when the water's green on the reservoir side, but it's brown coming out of the outlet, which means that there's possible sediment transport of material from the dam. And again, there's also evidence of seepage through the dam, which when you go there, you can look on the downstream side of the structure and at the toe, and you can see green grasses growing, and that means the phreatic surface through the dam of where the water is fairly high. And additionally, probably be worth looking at the auxiliary spillway to see if the capacity is sufficient for a design storm event.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if I could ask a follow-up, and I appreciate you explaining, what the issues with the dam are. I think I was just more curious, it was built in 1965, and there's obviously, issues with it. Why wasn't it ever rehabilitated?
Keith Conrad, for the record. Typically, it's not uncommon for dams throughout the state to not get regular maintenance, and within the state-owned dams, I think it's probably Public Works, NDOW, NDOT, Water Resources, and there's probably a few other agencies that own these dams. And so, except for maybe within Water Resources, the expertise to own and operate a dam is not a typical. It's not anyone's job typically within any of these agencies. So, so we make recommendations, and whether or not there's money within any given budget to address any of these issues, it's a yearly thing. Well, great. Last session there's money. This session there may not be money. So, and typically, it's deferred maintenance, and that's, I don't think it's dam specific, but it's across, all our assets throughout the state.
Okay, thank you. And then just one last question, Madam Chair. I know that the report, thank you for authoring it. That report had mentioned that these recommendations should be completed within 2 years, but it's my understanding that the future construction of this project, should this funding be approved, wouldn't be completed until October 2029. So what are the consequences of not meeting the recommended 2-year timeline?
It'll be like it has been for probably the last 30 years. I would imagine that these recommendations have probably been ongoing. So we typically make short-term 1 year and 2-year recommendations and monitoring recommendations. So, and that's for any given dam inspection. So it's if it doesn't happen within a few years, we just like to get it on the dam owner's radar that this is problematic and you should be paying attention to this. So.
Thank you very much for those questions. Yeah, it's crazy to think about how long that's needed to be renovated and nothing's happened. I am having trouble processing as well, Assemblymember Hattigi. All right, any additional questions to this particular item? And if not, we will go to the Office of the Military.
For the record, Mike Brown, Chief of Planning. Now I'd like to turn it over to Deputy Administrator Brian Walker.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning. For the record, my name is Brian Walker. Walker is W-A-C-K-E-R, and I'm the Deputy Administrator of Professional Services for the State Public Works Division. I'm going to discuss the Office of the Military, starting with their construction projects. Our first project, CO6, provides a parking apron expansion at the Nevada Air National Guard's facility at the Reno Tahoe International Airport. Their facility, shown on this slide, is located on the west side of the airport and south of the passenger terminal. This project will expand the apron to the north and provide the ability to park 8 C-130 aircraft. It's probably a little hard to see on this map, but the expansion will be at the upper right-hand corner of the box, red box. CO6 is a $9.2 million project. $8.9 million is federal funding, and $235,000 is state funding. The next project is C29, which constructs a 27,750 square foot storage hangar for 3 Chinook helicopters at the Nevada Army National Guard's Harry Reid Training Center at the Stead Airport. The Stead Airport is located north of Reno, as shown on this map. C29 is a $21.7 million project. $5.7 million is federal funding, and $16 million is state funding. Now I'll cover the military's planning projects. Project PO5 is first, and it will design renovations to the Camp Washoe facility instead. Camp Washoe is located just south of the Stead Airport, as shown on this map. The state purchased this building in 2022 with funds provided by CIP Project 21C08. This is a 34,659 square foot building constructed in 1970. Work is required to bring this facility into compliance with the Building Code and Department of Defense standards, consistent with the National Guard's needs. This is a full building renovation that is projected to include mechanical, electrical, and fire and life safety, seismic upgrades, a new elevator, and site upgrades. PO5 is a $2.1 million design-only project. $910,000 is federally funded, and the remaining $1.2 million is funded by the state. The second military planning project is PO6, which designs a facility for the Civil Service Team. The proposed location is vacant state property located north of Northern Nevada Correctional Center. A specific location has not been identified. However, we are targeting locating this facility inside the red box located in the southeast corner of Carson City, as shown here. Project PO6 is a $928,000 design-only project of an 8,240 square foot building and surrounding yard for the Civil Service Team. $590,000 is federally funded, and the remaining $338,000 is funded by the state. Next, we will present the Office of the Military's maintenance project, which is Project MO9, and it's located at the Office of the Adjutant General Building in Carson City. As shown here, this facility is located just east of Interstate 580 and off of Fairview Drive. The project makes various electrical and lighting improvements to the facility. The electrical distribution equipment in this building is 23 years old and due for replacement. MO9 is a $3.6 million project. $908,000 is federally funded, and the remaining $2.7 million is state funded. With that, I'll stop for questions on the Office of the Military projects.
Thank you very much, and I do know that we have some questions, and we'll start with Speaker Yeager.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I do have a few questions. The first one is on C06, the parking apron expansion at the Reno Airport. And the question is, has the Nevada Air National Guard been given a deadline by which that new parking apron must be completed?
Good morning. Alex Estrada, ALEX, Deputy Base Civil Engineer for 152nd Airlift Wing, Nevada Air National Guard. Yes, sir. Thank you for that question. So this project basically came up because we are in competition with other states for trying to get a new weapon system, the C-130J model, which is an advancement to the C-130J or the C-130Hs that we currently have. We don't have a specific deadline, but the earlier we get it, the better place will be as far as being selected for the next round of C-130Js. This project is considered an IOC project, which means that they would like to see this project completed before delivery of any C-130Js, even if we were to be accepted to get those.
And Chair, could I ask a follow-up on that? Yes. I understand there's no specific deadline, but you did reference sort of the next round of selection. Do we have any idea like when that is going to be? Are we talking like 12 months, 2 years, 3 years? Do we know at this point?
Yes, sir. For the record, Alex Estrada. So I do know that the next round or the next selection is within the year. I don't know the exact time frame on that, but I would say probably within the next six to 8 months.
Okay, thank you. And Chair, could I ask a couple questions on a different
Please.
project? I have a couple questions on C-29, which is the Harry Reid Training Center. And so the first question I have there is what is the square footage of the original hangar that accommodates the 6 aircraft, and how many of each type of aircraft are stored in this hangar?
Good morning, Jamie Ivey for the record, Deputy Director for Installations Environment for the Army National Guard, IVEY. Currently, we only have a maintenance hangar. It stores 2 of the CH-47s. The rest of the aircraft are parked onto the apron. The existing maintenance hangar is only 30,000 square feet, but that also includes work area, so we can only store up to 2 of the airframes at a time. This new hangar of 26,000 square feet would be able to house all 3 of the 7 that we have. So we'll be able to house 5 out of 7 in the maintenance and in the additional hangar.
Could you clarify what you just said? I think we're all numbered out, but if you could clarify what you just said, it would help.
Absolutely. Jamie Abbey for the record. We currently have a maintenance hangar of 30,000 square feet. It can house up to 2 of the CH-47s, the Chinook helicopters. The addition of this storage hangar would be able to allow us to house 3 out of the total 7 that we have, which would meet our requirement for 50% in storage.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question? Please. Okay. Our notes show that there's 12 aircrafts total, right? There's 6 Blackhawks and 6 Chinooks, the CH-47s. If there's only 7 there, where are the other aircrafts, or are our numbers incorrect?
Jamie Abbey for the record. The Blackhawks have their own current storage hangar that is completing construction right now that will house 3 of those. And they have their own maintenance hangar as well that can house up to 2 to 3. So they are all located on the same site, but they have different hangars and requirements for those sizes of aircraft.
Follow-up? So the Blackhawks, all 6 of them will be in the new hangar that's under construction now. They'll be able to be housed in that.
Jamie Abbey for the record. It'll house 3 in the current storage hangar that's under construction, and the maintenance bay is available to house up to 3 there as well.
And Chair, I do have one more question, if I could.
Please.
I think I'm getting an understanding of what is happening there, and you can let me know if I'm incorrect about this. But my question was about the hangar that was, I guess, the current hangar that is the 16,355 square foot. It was not constructed at a height that would accommodate clearance for the tallest helicopter, and so I guess the question is why wasn't that taken into account when you came, I think it was in the last legislative session, the 2021 session, when we approved that hangar, but it appears that there are maybe helicopters that are too big to fit in there height-wise. So can you talk about why that wasn't taken into consideration 2 years ago when we approved that project?
Jamie Ivey for the record. Each of these is a separate congressional approved project. The clearance difference between the Blackhawk and the Chinooks is about 36 foot in height. If we were to have built it, we would have increased the cubic square footage of that building, which would have increased the cost, and we still would not have been able to, because we also would have to have increased the width of the facility and the length due to the size of the Chinooks versus the Blackhawks. There's a great difference in the size of those helicopters. So we also had the funding to construct the Blackhawk solely, and we had another project on the horizon for an independent project for the Chinooks as well, that Congress approved both of those for us to continue to build those. So those were separate requirements that we were building out. We had the funds in the 21 CIP to build the Blackhawks, and then we received funding for the Chinooks in 2022, so we approached to get this project presented to you all for support.
All right, we will go to Assemblymember Backus.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I take it from your response, if the committee is to approve the CIP for the 27,000 square foot hangar, it's still, because of how large the Chinooks are, it's still not going to house all 12. I think your testimony is it's only going to house 3 with 27,000 square feet. Is that my understanding?
Jamie Ivey for the record. Yes, ma'am, I do believe you might have a miscount on the amount of aircraft we have. We only have 7 Chinooks. It might be included in the total of what we have out on the airstrip currently in between both Blackhawks and Chinooks, but we do have 7 of those aircrafts. And so we would be able to house, between the maintenance hangar that we currently have and this addition of the storage hangar, total of 5 out of the 7.
Okay, thank you for that. And then with respect to, it already seems to have been approved that there will be federal funding for this type of project. Do you know what the amount will be from that federal funding? I understand it may represent about 26% of the total funds needed to build that hangar, but can you kind of elaborate more if you have any specifics on what has been approved?
Jamie Ivey for the record. Currently approved is the $5.7 million through a unified minor MILCON project, what we call a UMMC from Congress. The maximum allowance at the time was $6 million. We were available to secure 5.7. Out of that, we received 10% of that funding toward design as well. So we should receive an additional $570,000 for design.
And then, Madam Chair, may I have a follow-up? And then I have another item that I'm going to cover. Thank you. I just wanted, I know we're seeing a lot of stuff moving in the federal government with grants. This was a grant that was approved in 2022, it sounds like. My question is, have you received any notice of potentially the federal funds that have been made available for this project to be withdrawn?
Jamie Ivey for the record. Currently, as it stands, we are under no potential threat with the current administration to lose this funding, but we do have a critical need to complete this project due to the fact that this appropriation was made several years back.
Thank you so much for that. And then I'm going to move on. I have a question about the 25-Planning 06 project regarding the Nevada Army National Guard's Civil Service Team Facility. One is, and I don't know who's going to know this, is there a budget amendment for this planning project forthcoming? And if so, can you discuss the potential changes to this project?
Jamie Ivey for the record. As of 2 weeks ago, we did request an amendment. It actually would reduce our cost from the state by $27,390,000. We had a approval 2 weeks ago from National Guard Bureau to actually maximize our allowance of the square footage to their maximum need, which is 26,000 square feet versus the 8,600 we requested. Unfortunately, it did not make it to today, but we do have a request to not waste funds to build an 86,000 square foot, but actually design to our full authorization of 26,000 square feet.
Sorry about that, Madam Chair. I have a clarification. I just want to make sure, because I love when I hear reductions in our budget amount, that makes me excited. But then it sounded like you were like a however. So is the reduction forthcoming, or are you staying at the full amount? I kind of didn't understand that.
Apologies, Jamie Ivey for the record. From the revision that we received from State Public Works, we would design the 26,000 square foot facility in addition with the reduction of the $27,000.
I'm hoping we're talking about the same thing, because I'm also talking about, so it's the Planning 06 project on page 68 of our CIP that is for the civil service teams. It's an 80, I have an 8240 square foot civil service facility on state property west of the Northern Nevada Correctional Center. That's the one I'm talking about. And so I'm not sure if the answer's still the same, because it sounds like it's going to be a much larger space. And then my next question would be, is what is that space intended to be utilized, and how many staff would it accommodate?
Jamie Ivey for the record. It is the same space. Our original programming we had in order to compete congressionally. We were trying to get out of a lease, and we were competing at a different scale. We ended up getting into another competition group within the 54 in a new category, which we could authorize to our full square footage, which was 26,000 square feet. While it will only house 22 employees, that space also includes about 6,200 ready bay space for ready bays, which is for their vehicle equipment, which requires specialized 24-hour electrical connection, and for it to be climate controlled due to the sensitivity of the vehicles.
Thank you very much. And I have one question on this, and then another question on another maintenance piece. So when you mentioned an amendment, when will we be receiving that amendment?
Unfortunately, Jamie Ivey for the record, I do not have a time frame. I do know I talked with the governor's office. It was approved through them. When it gets down to State Public Works, unfortunately, that's out of my purview for a timeline.
Okay, thank you for that. And we do have a timeline, so you might want to check on our timeline, because after June 3rd, it won't happen. So it's quicker than like May 1st or what have you. So is the governor's office here? Perhaps they can answer. I don't know. Somebody here from finance?
Thank you. Bridget Garrison, Garrison, from the Governor's Finance Office. I am not sure. I'll have to get back to you on that. I have not seen anything for this budget amendment, so I'll have to get that for you.
Okay, thank you very much. Sooner is better. Thank you. All right, and then I have one other question on the power distribution and lighting for the office of, let's see, the Lawrence E. Jacobson Center. How would that office fund this project should there be a delay that it would extend the project completion beyond June 2027 when federal funds are due to expire?
Brian Walker for the record. My apologies, Madam Chair. I think I'm trying to just kind of understand what the question is. Are you asking what would happen if the federal funds expire before we complete the project?
Well, your project completion was June 2027, I believe. And so the federal funds expire then. So what happens if it's not completed? And do you have a plan B if it's not completed and your federal funds are gone? And, you know, I personally hate to quit hammering on this, but, you know, last Friday, our State Department of Education took a hit. And so there's no way for any of us to know that the next department isn't coming this Friday. I don't know. So what's going to happen if you don't have those federal funds or they expire?
Brian Walker for the record. Understood. Thank you. So I'd just say, you know, currently we don't have a contingency plan other than to hurry up and get it done before the funds expire. This is a project we have already started. Make sure I have my note correct. We have started design on this project already through an agency project, 23A016, and so the design is ready to go. And so as far as the request in front of you is concerned, it's really just a construction request. And so we believe we can get it done ahead of that timeline. It sounds like we do need to move it ahead a couple of months to make sure we have some float in our schedule. And I'll take that in note here. But I think we would know ahead of time before we got into the project whether we would have a funding timeline issue. And so that's something we would look to at the beginning. We would not want to get ourselves into a situation at the end of the project, you know, as funds expire.
Yeah, I'd put on my roller skates. So I appreciate that, but I am very worried. So thank you very much. And with that, if I don't see any additional questions, then we will move on to the Department of Veterans Services.
All right, thank you. For the record again, Brian Walker, Deputy Administrator of the State Public Works Division. I'm going to continue with the Department of Veterans Services, starting with their construction projects. First is Project CO3, which is the North Las Vegas State Veterans Home. This project is located within the red square on this map. As you might have picked up from the label, the proposed Veterans Home was located directly adjacent to the Decatur DMV near the intersection of West Elkhorn Road and North Decatur Boulevard. The DMV uses less than half of this parcel, and the remaining area is suitable for the Veterans Home. So here's the proposed facility. The new home is a 156,700 square foot, 128 bed facility for Nevada's veterans. The home is being designed in accordance with the U.S. Department of Veterans Small House Design Guidelines, and you can see the result in the rendering. So just walking through this, you can see that each black rectangle is the roof of a wing that contains 8 residential units. 2 wings will make up a household, which has a common living and service facility, and the home will have 8 of these households. Here are a couple of exterior renderings of the facility. The upper left is a view of the residential units, and this has been designed to have a neighborhood feel. The lower right is a view of the front entrance. The veterans' home is being designed with adequate parking for guests and events. Each household will have access to exterior courtyard space with various activities. Here are some of the interior spaces planned for the facility. The upper right is the main entry. The lower right is a theater, lower left is a conservatory, and the upper left is a spa. This is intended to be a welcoming home with access to activities and recreations for veterans and their families. And finally, the budget for Project CO3. This is a $223 million investment in Nevada's veterans. 65% of CO3 is supported by a federal grant of $145 million. The remaining $78 million comes from state funding. The next project is CO8, which provides supplemental funding for utility extensions at the Northern Nevada Veterans Memorial Cemetery in Fernley. The cemetery is on the north side of Fernley, shown on this map. The red line you see crossing the page is Interstate 80. CO8 provides additional funds to support CIP Project 23C13. It was discovered during the project design that site power and water were not adequate to support the committal building. This is a $2.7 million project and is 100% state funded. Our last three projects for the Department of Veterans Services are the maintenance variety. And here's a summary of these projects. A total of $4.4 million is requested for veterans maintenance. Project MO5 is the first project and will provide chiller water system improvements at the Northern Nevada State Veterans Home. This home was located just off of Battleborn Way and is south of I-80 in Sparks. This project will replace the existing air-cooled chiller with redundant water-cooled chillers to provide resilient cooling of the home. This project will also improve cooling in the laundry room. Project MO5 is $2.8 million and is 100% state funded. Projects M18 and M21 are both located at the Southern Nevada State Veterans Home. This home is located in Boulder City, just north of the Boulder City Parkway on Veterans Memorial Drive. Project M18 will replace kitchen ventilation equipment, including a fire suppression system. This is a $1.3 million project and is 100% state funded. Project M21 will replace the home's water softening equipment. This is a $274,000 project and is 100% state funded. So thanks for your time today, and we stand ready to answer questions on the Department of Veterans Services projects.
Thank you very much, and I'll start out here. Can you talk a little bit about the need for the bed capacity in the veteran community in Southern Nevada? And is there a wait list, and how is this project going to help that need in the future? And give us a little specifics for that. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Director Devine for the record. Yes, there is a wait list in both Northern Nevada and Southern Nevada. We have a current need for just over 649 beds statewide. We have just over 300, we have an unmet need of about 373 beds statewide.
So that's 649 beds are needed.
Yes.
And you only can accommodate about 300 plus or so of those beds?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had my figures right.
Yeah, a lot of math goes into it because we're also, the remodel of the Boulder City home plays into this as well.
Okay. All right. I believe Assemblymember Torres Fawcett has a couple questions.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for going over this item. I was hoping you could address the estimated cost of furniture, fixtures, and equipment for the North Las Vegas State Veterans Home that would be requested for the 2027 CIP.
I believe the FF&E is included in that budget, correct? I'll let you jump in.
Brian Walker for the record. Yeah, you're right. We have not included that with this budget request. And I honestly, I don't have that number in front of me. And so that's something I could follow up with, an estimated cost. I do want to say that we typically don't include the FF&E request, or it depends on the project. With a construction project of this size, because we won't need the FF&E until at least 2 years from now. So that keeps us from having to fund something that's just going to sit for 2 years. But that's something that we're developing, working on developing.
Thank you. And on that note, would you be able to address some of the issues or concerns with not including the funding for furniture, fixtures, and equipment with recommended funding for this specific construction project?
Brian Walker, for the record, I'm just trying to understand the question. Are you asking like the issue of not doing, or just understanding why we didn't?
Thank you. Just trying to understand the potential risks of not including that with this request today.
Understood. Brian Walker, for the record. Yeah, I understand what you're asking. I think, the risk is, and I think if I'm following your question, the risk would be not having it funded 2 years from now. And so the risk would be if that future FF&E project was not funded, we would potentially have a home without furniture. And so it is something that becomes very critical next session to fund.
Thank you. And kind of continuing along the same lines of questioning in regards to the North Las Vegas State Veterans Home. To my knowledge, we have not yet received the federal grant for this project. And so has the Department of Veteran Services received any update from the VA on the status of that federal grant and what that would look like?
Director Devine, for the record. Once we have the outcome of this, we will upload that information. We have 6 months from the end of the legislative session to upload the information to the VA portal, and then we'll find out about the VA grant.
Thank you. And just a quick follow-up. So is that grant then contingent on legislative funding? Or would there be other reasons why they might decline it? And I mean, obviously with the federal government changing their grant systems as very frequently, as the chair noted earlier, are there concerns that we just wouldn't get that funding?
Director Devine, for the record. When we have the state matching funds, it moves us up into a higher priority of grant funding. At this point, the VA has not indicated any reason why we should question the ability to get the construction funding. This is not an area where they have said there's a volatility for this grant.
Thank you. And I guess the concern still remains, obviously, with cuts. I mean, we didn't think that the Department of Education was going to get eliminated either, and here we are. So I'm a little hesitant just because we don't, the volatility of the United States funding of grants just doesn't seem like something we can rely on right now.
Thank you very much. And I'll follow up on the Assembly member's concern. Because I know with this, we have to spend the federal dollars first, and knowing that you're talking about grants, are you going to have someone to be able to do those grants in place?
Director Devine, for the record, we have one employee at this point for the grants that is in place. We also have a second employee that we have asked for this legislative session to assist with this.
So I guess I would still say we have to spend that. We have to match the grant to get the grant. We have to have the person to do the grant, and then we have to spend those federal dollars first, which is a real slippery slope. So here's hoping it all works out for our veterans who deserve it.
Director Devine, for the record, thank you very much, and I am confident that State Public Works has got my back.
We will go to Assembly Member Hadigi. Apologies, I believe it is Assembly or Speaker Yeager.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. I had a couple questions on C08, the cemetery committal building. And the first question I have there is if you could provide a status update on the work performed on the existing construction project for the committal building at the Northern Nevada Veterans Memorial Cemetery.
Brian Walker, for the record, thank you for that question. Design has been undergoing with the understanding that we do need some supplemental funding for that project. I believe we're at about 100% design, and it's just kind of waiting to see what will happen with this request.
Thank you. Then, Chair, could I ask one more question? And then on that same project, could you talk about what steps the division is taking to ensure that power and water utility extensions would be identified and included in the development of future CIP construction projects?
Yeah, Brian Walker for the record. It's not fun to ask for supplemental funding on projects. I think that is a good, poignant question, and a lesson learned for us is, and I'll just say, when we bring a project before this body, it's our understanding that it's a full, complete project, and we try to present all costs that we can and cover everything. Having said that, we do develop these projects before design has started, and we're not perfect, and sometimes we do have a miss. And so on this one, the lesson learned on this project is we do need to take a closer look at the utilities on site to make sure that they're adequate for their service. I think when this project was developed, specifically was really just looking at the building, and we missed that water and electrical were not adequate for the building. So I'd like to say that we don't want to be here asking for supplemental funding again, and we appreciate some understanding on this matter.
No, thank you so much. I mean, look, we don't expect perfection. We're not perfect human beings, any of us, but I think if we could just live and learn and hopefully try to mitigate that in the future so you're not back with a supplemental request, but certainly understand the response and appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And I believe Assemblymember O'Neill has a question.
Thank you, Chair. Director Vine, Mr. Walker, tangentially speaking on C08, I've just got to ask, I'm afraid I know the answer. Has there been any work with the county or the city of Fernley to improve the access road to the Northern Veterans Cemetery? Because you're almost, right now, it's getting so bad, you need a four-wheel drive. And I think it's really discouraging and almost insulting to our veterans to have that kind of access. Is there any hope for improvements?
Director Devine, for the record, we've reached out to set up a meeting with the city officials to talk to them about what they can do for that area. We haven't got really much of a response yet.
I was afraid I knew the answer. If there's anything I can do, please let me know. I'd appreciate it. Thank you, Chair, for the time.
Thank you very much. And we will go to Senator Scheibel.
Thank you so much, Chair. I want to go back to M05, or go to M05, and I understand that part of the issue here is that that's the water chiller. I understand that there were substitutions made in the laundry unit, and I'm wondering if those were known prior to construction or if that happened after the construction.
Brian Walker for the record. I guess kind of the cooling for the laundry systems, it was designed around a really kind of a specific set or type of equipment. And my understanding is that during construction, that equipment was no longer available. So different laundry equipment was installed, and that had a different, I guess you'd call it, cooling need for that space, which has caused some issues. And so it was something that we didn't understand during design. And basically, it was the issue came up as equipment was substituted, really during construction, or I guess you'd almost say outfit of the facility. And so that's, it's a known issue now, and that's why we're looking to address it with this project.
Thank you. And what steps is the division taking to ensure that post-design modifications are considered prior to beginning the construction phase?
Administrator Will Lewis for the record. So what we're doing now is we are developing a much more robust facility condition analysis group that we're going to go in and first of all, have accurate documentation on our existing facilities so that when a PM take over on a new project like that, we're starting with a body of information that we know what we're dealing with. In the past, we've kind of abdicated that to our design professionals, and things were missed. We're not making that mistake again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions from the committee members? All right, well, with that, we will close out the budget hearings on the CIP projects. I believe we are finished. I see no more questions, and I appreciate you being here today and everyone else in the audience that sort of came up and took one for the team, so thank you very much. And so with that, I'll close out these budget hearings, and we will move to the last agenda item for the day, which is public comment. For those of you listening to call in to provide testimony, please dial 888-475-4499. And the meeting ID for today is 875-6254-1362, and then press pound. And when prompted for your participant ID, just press pound. So we'll begin here in Carson City. If there's anyone who has public comment, if you'll come forward, state and spell your name for the record, and begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Dondero Loop. My name is Jane Amon, and I am the Nevada External Affairs Director for the Nature Conservancy. I'm here today to voice strong support for the Conserve Nevada Grants Program. An excellent example of leveraging state conservation bonds is the Nature Conservancy's restoration work along the lower Truckee River below Reno and Sparks. TNC was the recipient of approximately $4.5 million of original Q1 conservation bond funding, which was first approved by voters in 2002. The Conservancy matched these funds with over $25 million of federal, local, and nonprofit grants to ultimately complete a $30 million restoration effort that restored 11 miles of river and revegetated 800 acres of wetlands and riparian forest. The project benefits fish and wildlife, flood control efforts, water quality, and recreational users. The fiscal year 2011 Department of Interior Economic Contributions Report found that in the first phase of this project between 2006 and 2010, the project generated $5.7 million in economic contributions, 37 jobs, and $2.7 million in labor income to the local economy each year. With Conserve Nevada grants, similar benefits can be realized by communities across the state, where there is a great need for conservation funding. We are grateful that the legislature reauthorized the conservation bond programs in 2019. To date, only a small percentage of the authority for the competitive grants program has been appropriated for spending. We submitted a written comment to the subcommittee, which includes a letter to Governor Lombardo signed by 28 organizations in October 2024, requesting a $20 million funding level for Conserve Nevada grants. And so we are very excited to see that $20 million is allocated for the competitive grants program for the fiscal year 26-27 biennium. We strongly support full funding for this allocation to the grants program and to other allocations in the Conserve Nevada program. It's very important for our communities. We thank the work that the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources does, and thank you on this committee for the important service that you give to our state.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Olivia Tanager, for the record. That's OLIVIATANAGER, on behalf of the Sierra Club's Toyabe chapter. I'm going to go ahead and ditto a lot of what Ms. Moan said. We strongly support the Conserve Nevada program as well and encourage you to fully fund it. There's an urgent need for this funding to support projects that help communities prepare for drought, expand outdoor recreation access for Nevadans, restore fire-damaged and degraded landscapes, and build resilience against increasing heat and dryness across the state. These efforts will also provide greater protection for the wildlife and open spaces that make Nevada such a special place to live. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead when you're ready.
Madam Chair, committee members, for the record, Edwin James, that's James. I'm the general manager for the Carson Waters Subconservancy District, and we do regional watershed planning for the entire Carson, from Alpine County all the way down to Churchill County. Conserve Nevada is critically important for our partners. Our partners need these fundings for a lot of the projects they work for trails, open space, wildlife, ecosystems, and also improving water quality in the watershed. So we ask for your support in this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Iris Jaley Papard, IRIS Jaley, JEHLE hyphen PEPPARD, and I'm the Executive Director of One Truckee River. We manage a coalition of over 30 agencies in Washoe County related to protecting and enhancing the Truckee River. And we just completed 4 years of a framework plan, an in-depth conditions assessment, and a project prioritization tool that really shows that there is a lot of erosion, a lot of invasive species, and a lot of need for more native vegetation along the corridor. And so because of that and everything else these conservation funds support, I'm in support of Conserve Nevada and the other programs mentioned to fund natural resources and conservation. The conservation bonds are critical for Nevada communities. They support communities to plan and prepare for droughts, provide recreational amenities so that Nevadans can enjoy the outdoors. Funded projects heal and restore fire-scarred and other degraded landscapes and enhance resilience for people and nature as we face increasing heat and drought conditions in the state. And it also provides for projects to help protect and improve the Truckee River, where 85% of Washoe County's drinking water comes from. And beyond all of these, our natural spaces not only increase residents' quality of life, but it provides economics to the state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning. My name is Juan F. Guzman. I volunteer with 3 nonprofits in Northern Nevada: Carson Valley Trails Association, Muscle Powered, and the historic VNT. In the past, it just so happens that I managed the open space program for Carson City. It was a great job. It was the best job I ever had. We used funds of Q1 to buy lands around the Carson River, buy lands also high up on the Sierra Nevada mountain on the Carson Range. Then we went and used a method with the help of Senator Reed, and had a land bill that allows us to trade lands with the Forest Service and BLM. That resulted in a big chunk of land, around 3,000 acres of contiguous land along the Carson River, to be safe and open for protection, and more importantly, managed by Carson City for the benefit of our residents and visitors. I am in support of the $20 million increase or the $20 million grant request for Conserve Nevada. And like I mentioned to you, Q1 work, so I don't see why this future generation of funds will not work. It is the purpose of the historic Virginia and Truckee Trails Association to build a rail trail that will connect 5 counties: Washoe, Carson City, Lyon, Story County, and Douglas County. Without these funds, or without the opportunity to augment the scarce monies we have with grants, it will be impossible to fulfill our vision. This trail will offer alternative transportation and recreation for residents and visitors. It will improve the economic viability of our counties. Now I want to switch gears, because you hear this kind of testimony all the time, but I want to tell you what this means. Trails are so important in our community for our quality of life. I have 3 grandkids. I wish you could meet them. Sawyer loves just walking and looking at birds. Jack is looking behind every rock for scorpions, snakes, and frogs. That's his passion. Tilly is still too small to know what he's looking, but he follows her brothers and just walks with me. Mala and a half, just every time they come to visit, this is what they live for. This is what they want to do with Papa. I'm being their Papa. The opportunity to improve our quality of life and the opportunity to be able to recreate in our incredible outdoor spaces is so well enhanced by these funds. It's one of the best uses you can have with a relatively small portion of our budget. I really appreciate the opportunity to testify this morning. Thank you very much.
And thank you for your information and your story. Thank you very much. All right, any additional here in Carson City? Anyone in Las Vegas for public comment? Seeing none, we will go to the phone lines. AVH, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to provide public comment today, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good morning. My name is Caitlin Meyer. I'm the Chief Program Officer at the Tahoe Fund. We're a nonprofit that raises philanthropic dollars to go toward environmental improvement projects around Lake Tahoe. I'm calling in with thanks to this committee for its time and in strong support of the Lake Tahoe Environmental Improvement Program bonds. The Tahoe Fund also wishes to express its very strong support for the Conserve Nevada funds, specifically the proposal to put $2 million of this funding toward the next phase of the SR28 Corridor Management Plan, also known as the East Shore Trail. Last week, the Tahoe Fund committed $90,000 as the private match to this $2 million, and we want to reiterate to this committee that we will continue to do our part to raise the private funds needed to match public investments and complete the entire suite of environmental safety and recreation improvements along the SR28 corridor. These projects are hugely impactful and a top priority for the Tahoe Fund and our donors. And to give you just a quick sense of how much this work means to our community, over 1,300 donors have chipped in to help the Tahoe Fund raise $3 million for SR28 to date. We've allocated about $1.1 million of that $3 million to various efforts along the corridor so far, and we can't wait for what's next. So in closing, on behalf of the Tahoe Fund's board, donors, and communities, we are immensely grateful to the state of Nevada and to this committee for your ongoing support of Lake Tahoe and SR28 improvements, and we're standing by to help however we can moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 834. Please press star 6 to unmute yourself.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Amelia Raquel, AMELIA-RAQUEL, and I'm a regional biologist for Ducks Unlimited in Nevada, Northeastern California, and the Klamath Basin. Ducks Unlimited conserves, restores, and manages wetlands and associated habitats for North America's waterfowl and waterbirds. These habitats also benefit other wetland wildlife and people. Ducks Unlimited is the lead organization in North America for wetlands and waterfowl conservation with 5,000 members and over 76,000 wetland acres conserved in Nevada alone. We come before you today to respectfully request a minimum of $20 million be provided to the Conserve Nevada Grants Program under AB 84. Even though AB 84 authorized up to $217 million of funding for programs like Conserve Nevada Grants, the grants program has not received more than $2.5 million since AB 84 was reauthorized in 2019. With more funding for competitive Conserve Nevada grants, Ducks Unlimited could lead more on-the-ground wetland conservation projects with our partners such as Nevada Department of Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and other nonprofits and private landowners. In addition to directly funding conservation projects, more state funding in the Conserve Nevada granting program opens up opportunities to leverage these funds for additional federal dollars to further expand and increase the pace of conservation in the state of Nevada. In my role as a regional biologist, I coordinate with a team of engineers and support staff, and we are responsible for implementing on-the-ground habitat projects that contribute to the overall mission of our organization. We work with partners to develop projects, write grants, including strategizing how to leverage funds in order to get the most conservation dollars on the ground. And then we oversee construction of the projects, which is hired out to local contractors. Our conservation projects are not only critical to migratory bird species, but also provide support clean water, healthy pollinator populations, flood mitigation, public recreation, and countless other outcomes. Recently, the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources conducted a statewide needs assessment for the fiscal year 24-25 and found that the conservation needs for the Conserve Nevada grants are over $288 million. Currently, there exists $70 million in bond authority for these important grants. Please consider our modest request to fund the program in FY 26-27 at $20 million. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. AVH, do we have any more callers on the line?
Yes, Chair. One moment, please. Caller with the last three digits, 485. Please press star 6 to unmute yourself, and you may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today. My name is Gianna Caselli. I am a student at the University of Nevada, Reno, and I am also president of the University of Nevada Ducks Unlimited chapter. Ducks Unlimited is a North America leader in conservation, primarily wetlands and waterfowl conservation. Statewide, Nevada has 5,000 active members with over 76,000 wetland acres conserved through their participation with Ducks Unlimited. I speak today requesting support to fund the Conserve Nevada Grants Program. With this funding, the UNR chapter, as well as 11 more Nevada chapters, can continue their support with conservation and wetland restoration projects in Nevada. As a proud sixth-generation Nevadan, I've grown up in a family that deeply values our public lands and its natural resources. This heritage has fostered a strong appreciation for the delicate balance between wildlife and the environment. Conservation management is vital to us because without it, future generations of wildlife would not be able to thrive at sustainable levels. Knowing that Nevada is the driest state in the country with the least amount of precipitation creates an even more delicate balance when considering the preservation of wetland ecosystems. Wetlands specifically are crucial to us. They act as natural filters, improving water quality and providing essential habitats for many species. For waterfowl, wetlands offer breeding grounds, food, and a safe space in migration corridors. Protecting these areas ensures the future of waterfowl populations and supports all species that rely on these habitats for sanctuary. Recently, the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources conducted a statewide needs assessment and found that the Conserve Nevada Grants Program needs are over $288 million. Please consider our humble request to fund the program at $20 million for the next 2 fiscal years. Thank you for your time and consideration. Please support our funding request.
Thank you very much. AVH, are there any callers?
If you have recently joined us and would like to provide public comment today, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. There are no other callers wishing to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you very much. And that completes our agenda today. I'd like to thank everyone for being here today and taking your time. Committee members, we will be back here tomorrow morning for interim finance, and we will begin at 8 o'clock. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.